Chapter 4. The worst proposal in history. Agnes left the still grumbling, gruesome twosome behind and followed Claude out of the ballroom into a different room down the hall. The room was ostentatiously large and sumptuously decorated, even though there was nothing in there but a table and sofas. A typical show of wealth and power within the royal palace. Claude gestured for Agnes to sit, which she did. Claude sat down on the sofa on the opposite side of the table. Maurice had popped up out of nowhere the second they left the ballroom and was now standing on guard near the door. A maid came in and served them tea before swiftly exiting. "So, what do you want to talk to me about?" Agnes asked.
Before that, why were you arguing with Phillip and the Barthay girl?
They're the ones who started it. The Barthay girl, as you call her, accused me of coming to the ball alone to get Phillip back. Just thinking about it made her blood boil all over again. What could have ever given Phillip's silly little side piece that crazy impression?
So, do you want Phillip back, I mean?
Not even in a million years. I don't even want to be around him, much less be forced into a conversation with him again. Agnes scoffed at the prospect of her pining over Phillip. For some reason, she thought Claude looked relieved. "Your Highness, why did you bring me here? You being seen with me doesn't reflect well on the royal family. And it's risky too, what with the mushroom effect and everything."
You hate being escorted to a ball by me that much?
No. It's not about you personally. It's just that I've made up my mind to not involve myself in high society events anymore. It's the ball that's the issue, not you. Claude narrowed his eyes a little as he let her words sink in.
I see. Incidentally, you keep talking about commoner life, but are you really serious about that?
Yes, I'm damaged goods. So I've decided this is the best option to avoid bringing further strife to my family.
Your family? So Count Lafour is on board with this plan?
Oh, goodness. He found my Achilles heel. My family is very kind, so of course they've tried to stop me. My father asked me to reconsider, but...
Then there's no need to go through with it.
No, that's only made me more determined than ever to leave home. I can't keep letting them indulge me. And I refuse to scupper my younger brother's future prospects.
Why do you think you're damaged goods?
I was engaged to a royal, then got cheated on and dumped by him in front of the ton. And I earned myself a reputation as a complaining, shrewish woman for talking back to him. No good marriage offers will come for me after all that.
Of course, it was philandering Phillip and simpering Sabina who were the ones at fault here. But not only was Phillip a lousy man with male privilege, but he was also a fringe royal. There was a huge chance people would pin the blame on her, even if she was completely faultless. Her peach blossom hair was a huge negative against her in this country. She could totally see people siding with Phillip just because of her hair.
Anyway, what concerns me most is my younger brother's image. He's only just made his official debut into society this season. No one will want to marry him if they know he's got a sister like me. I'll be considered a black stain on the family name.
So, arguing with Phillip today, was that supposed to make any of this better?
Agnes cringed. Wow, Claude knows just what sore spots to poke. Well, no, but I told him to leave me alone. I told him multiple times. I messed up. I should have just ignored him. Ignored them both, walked off.
That may have only drawn even more attention to you.
True. With her peach blossom hair flowing loose today,
Agnes had no hope of trying to do anything under the radar.
I wasn't going to appear at high society events anymore. I even disposed of all my dresses. You just dragged me here for fun, didn't you? What other reason would you have to put me in this fancy dress? Or was it your plan all along to make me a public scapegoat for restoring Philip's reputation? If that was Claude's plan, then I played right into it by arguing with Philip. How pitiful.
But Claude shook his head, looking alarmed. No, I would never do that. I certainly wouldn't have had a ball gown made for you or escorted you as a dance partner if that was my plan.
True, Agnes thought. That would have just been a waste of money. Then were you trying to smooth over the scandal by making it seem like everyone was fine with this situation? That it was all just water under the bridge? Sorry, but you should have told me beforehand if that was your plan. I can't muster up even a fake smile for the likes of Philip, you know.
No, Philip has nothing to do with it. I wanted to see you again. I wanted to talk to you.
Agnes blinked blankly at Claude.
She hadn't been expecting that.
What for? I already returned the handkerchief the other day. Don't worry, I'm not going to try to cause any issues for you.
Issues?
I mean, I wasn't planning to use it as a pretext to get close to you or anything. I know you're a highly eligible bachelor, sought after by all the young single ladies. But I'm not like that.
A highly eligible bachelor?
As Claude muttered her words under his breath, Agnes suddenly realized what she was doing. She was talking about Prince Claude, second in line to the throne, like he was a piece of juicy meat. I do apologize for my brazen word choice.
No, it's fine. But you're a young single lady too, aren't you? Do you also think I'm an eligible bachelor?
As he gazed at her with those dark, gray eyes, she realized she could hear her pulse pounding in her ears. Handsome young men are so dangerous. An ochre-colored mushroom sprouted on Claude's chest just then, as if reacting to Agnes's rapid heartbeat. It looked, she thought, like Maurice Maximus. Thin stalks with ruffled, floppy caps like little umbrellas. Well, yes. You're handsome and royal bred with incredible prospects. Any woman would be blessed to secure a position as your wife.
I see.
Claude was grinning as he plucked off the mushroom. Agnes had spoken matter-of-factly, but he seemed extremely tickled by her assessment. You're not mad?
Why would I be mad?
I was pretty rude just then. And then, the mushroom.
Well, you didn't mean it to be offensive, did you? And it's not like you sprouted this on purpose, right?
Claude was twirling the Mars Maximus playfully between his fingers, gazing at it. Maybe the mushroom is enjoying Claude's attention. No, I didn't do it on purpose. I might look the part, but I'm not actually a young noblewoman. I don't think you've heard, but I was raised as a commoner. I didn't want to cause a fuss, so I went along with the marriage talks concerning Philip and me. And I did my best to try to please him. But now I don't need to do that anymore. I think I let my tongue get too loose now that the pressure is off. I apologize.
Agnes bowed her head low, peeking up at Claude from beneath her lashes.
So, are we done? If so, I'd like to leave at once.
We've only just begun.
Ugh.
Agnes couldn't help letting out a groan of frustration that made Claude chuckle. I've been fixated on you since we first met. I just had to see you again.
There you go again, using all kinds of misleading words. Words that only lead to misunderstandings.
Agnes frowned, unimpressed by Claude's decidedly non-royal appropriate behavior.
What kind of misunderstandings?
The way you phrased that, it sounds like you want me to think you might like me or something. I have to say, I don't much appreciate it. I advise you to rethink how you talk in the future, or you could end up in unpleasant situations.
Agnes knew plenty of young women who'd lose their minds and betray their own flesh and blood over just a few words like that from Claude. But Claude simply sat and gazed at Agnes, as if completely unconcerned.
If that's what you think, well, you're right. I'm interested in you. If I wasn't, I never would have invited you here, had a dress made for you, or danced with you at the ball.
Wait, what?
Agnes stiffened, trying to process what he was saying.
I want to invite you back again, and be your dance partner again. I'll have another dress prepared for you. Would you wear it for me?
Why would you?
You threw away all your dresses, didn't you? I can't have you using that as an excuse not to come.
That's not it. Why would you want me?
Claude sighed deeply. The distrust on Agnes's face was blatantly obvious.
All right, I'll be frank. It was love at first sight.
Agnes stared at the handsome man with the dark gray eyes. None of this was registering with her at all. Then, Claude put his hand into his pocket and pulled out a handful of mushrooms. She recognized the ones he must have plucked off during the dance. But there were others there too, looking slightly shriveled. Agnes leaned in, curious. Claude held the mushrooms out for her to see.
I love mushrooms. I fell for these mushrooms at first sight.
You... what?
Now Agnes was really lost. She gazed at Claude, her jaw hanging uselessly. Claude beamed, still reverently clutching the mushrooms. Agnes's shock didn't seem to have bothered him at all.
The colors, the shine, the little warty bits, the little ruffles, the size of them, the way they feel to the touch. It's all sheer perfection. I've never encountered such magnificent mushrooms as these in all my life.
Claude's voice was growing louder and louder with excitement. Agnes had no idea what to do.
Sorry, but what are you on about?
I keep telling you, I'm crazy for these mushrooms.
As Claude gazed adoringly at the clump of shrooms in his hand, Agnes suddenly realized what was going on.
Oh no, he's a pervert with a major mushroom fetish.
Now she recognized the shriveled ones. Those were the mushrooms she'd sprouted on Claude as she was leaving the last ball, the one where Phillip dumped her.
The red caps with the white dots. Amanita muscaria.
It was weird enough that he'd been carrying mushrooms around in his pockets for days like this. But to talk about being in love with them? Here she was thinking he was some amazing catch. But no, he was an amazing creep.
I see. Well, I wish you and those mushrooms every happiness together. I have to be leaving now. Touch not a royal and ye shall awaken no mushroom fetishist.
Agnes hurriedly got up off the sofa, figuring it was better to make a quick exit. But Claude looked up at her in shock, still clutching the mushrooms.
Wait, where are you going? I'm not finished talking with you yet.
No, I wouldn't dream of intruding on you and your mushrooms. I'm going home.
No, you can't.
Claude placed the mushroom clump on the table, leaped to his feet, and strode up to Agnes. Grasping her hands in his, he watched intently as two little grayish-colored mushrooms popped up on the backs of his white gloves. The stalks looked like skewers of wood, with horse saddles on top. It was undoubtedly, Agnes realized, Helvella crispa,
also known as elfin saddles. Claude showed no shock or disgust at the sight of the sprouting mushrooms. Instead, his features were alit with delight.
I've never heard of a woman with the power to grow such incredible mushrooms.
Well, of course he hasn't. There were no other women who could make mushrooms grow on other people. Agnes was the only one. Agnes found herself cringing away from him in distaste, even as he held on tighter.
This is fate, I promise you. It's no spur of the moment decision. My morals are not questionable. You and I would make the mushiest couple imaginable. Would you marry me?
His dark gray eyes were terrifyingly serious as they gazed at Agnes. This has to be the worst proposal in the history of proposals. How can such deranged thoughts lurk in the mind of someone with such a refined face? The Mushroom Prince had sunk like a stone in Agnes's estimation. Now she'd slapped the mental label of deranged and quite possibly dangerous on him. Look, if it means that much to you, why don't you marry your little mushroom harvest? Congratulations on the happy union. Bye-bye now. I have to get away, far away, and fast. He's perverted. Really, dangerously, grossly perverted. Agnes tried to shake free of his grasp, but he was a knight, and she was just a mushroom girl, so he was far stronger. He clamped down and actually drew her closer. As Agnes gasped, she got a whiff of a sweet, fruity scent.
Don't be silly. It's you I need, Agnes Lefort.
Agnes glanced down in panic at her hands, which were clasped in Claude's white-gloved ones. At the same moment, a small mound of brownish mushrooms popped up on the backs of his hands, surrounding the two little grayish Helvella crispa. Agnes thought they might have been Gymnopilus junonius, not that it mattered right now. Claude's dark gray eyes lit up with delight, sparkling like a galaxy full of stars.
I can't let you get away. A woman who sprouts such incredible mushrooms. Let's get married. At once.
The mushroom fetishist's gibbering continued, making zero sense. Oh, slow down! Skipping the engagement altogether?
So you'll agree to get engaged?
No! I will not! Agnes yelled without thinking, and Claude slowly let go of her hands.
It's not such a bad idea, though, is it?
Uh-huh. He may be a fungal fetishist, but he is still a prince. Agnes was worried that she might have spoken too rudely to him. But he didn't seem to mind. He was admiring the Helvella crispa and Gymnopilus junonius on the backs of his gloved hands with clear delight. Claude looked very handsome, lashes downturned as he smiled down at his hands. Perversion aside, he was attractive. If you ignored the fact that he was pining over mushrooms right now, he really did look every inch the regal prince. He looked harmless, but that only made him even more dangerous.
It could work in your favor, you know. For example, it'd help smooth things over for your younger brother's standing.
Oh, what are you talking about? Anything to do with her brother had to be addressed. Claude grinned, seeing that Agnes had stopped trying to get away and was now fully invested in the conversation again.
Well, after the original incident, you followed up by yelling at Philip today, didn't you? You certainly made a show of yourself. Even if you disappear from high society life, it's not like everyone will just forget. However, if you're seen with me going forward, it will show that there's nothing between you and Philip anymore, because you've healed your wounded heart by finding true love with your real soulmate, the prince. By which I mean me.
Okay, perhaps. But it's just the mushrooms you found true love with. I've got nothing to do with it.
Don't be silly. These are your mushrooms. You sprouted them. I've fallen for the mushrooms, so by extension, I've fallen for you.
This is hopeless. His perverted thoughts are too hard to follow. Goodness, the entire royal family is turning out to be total idiots.
First, she got dumped by a philandering fuzzbrain. Now, she was being proposed to by a mad fungal fetishist of a prince, hell-bent on getting his hands on her shrooms. She had the worst luck with men, specifically royal men.
There can be no reasoning with a deranged pervert like this.
Agnes cast a desperate, pleading glance over at Maurice standing guard by the door. But Maurice cast his russet brown eyes down and stared at his boots.
Please give it up. His Highness's love for mushrooms is pure and true.
Can't you lie even a little bit and say that it's actually me he likes?
Putting aside his proclivity for mushrooms, the prince is cultured, sophisticated, and has a glittering future ahead of him. Please stop protesting and give him the mushrooms he desires.
So the prince is a freak, but it looks like his knight is a weirdo too.
Agnes shook her head stubbornly. She was not about to give in.
No, not happening. I am not a mushroom-producing factory.
There's no need to phrase it so indelicately. Let's call you a garden. A garden where mushrooms of love can be planted and grown.
Be quiet, you mycologist freak!
Agnes glared at Claude, who'd butted into the conversation with a big smile on his face. She was in a highly agitated state, which was perhaps why a clump of olive-colored mushrooms suddenly sprouted on both men's arms. From the distinctive caps that looked like they'd been dusted with cocoa powder, they were obviously Cortinarius cinnamomius, also known as the cinnamon webcap. Now Claude was standing there with 3 different varieties of mushrooms sprouting from his hands and arms. He looked like a tree. They were all poisonous varieties. It looked like Claude had been placed under a dramatic kind of curse. Claude sighed a little as he gently and reverently stroked each mushroom.
All right, then. There appears to be nothing that can be done. My love shall have to just go unrequited.
Nothing that can be done about what?
Agnes had no idea. As if reading her mind, Claude looked up and smiled at her.
He's so handsome for a freak.
If she didn't watch out for him, he'd end up harvesting all of her mushrooms.
Still, you don't want your father and brother to suffer as a result of your scandals, do you? Cheated on, dumped publicly, deemed damaged goods, all that? If the people knew that you'd captured my heart at first sight, it'd really restore your image and raise your profile. After all, I am the 4th-born prince and second in line to inherit the throne, you know. And I have a promising knightly career.
The pervert mushroom prince started listing his own accolades. Agnes stared at him, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Claude began plucking the mushrooms off his arm.
If you're not personally taken with the idea of being the one true love of the 4th-born prince, I can always use royal influence to force your hand. I'm still free, with no other engagements to complicate things. I think my father would approve.
You do realize I'm Philip's old cast-off, don't you?
Agnes hated having to describe herself like that. But she needed to get through to this mushroom fetishist somehow. She was expecting disgust once Claude remembered. But instead, he simply gave her a wry, exasperated smile.
What does that matter in the face of all these exquisite mushrooms?
His insane love for mushrooms was clearly far deeper than she had imagined. So Agnes decided to try a different tactic.
All right, but what about my hair color? Everyone hates it. You do too, of course.
No, why?
Why? Because this entire country hates peach blossom-colored hair.
He had to know that, even if all he cared about was mushrooms. Agnes had suffered discrimination over her hair her whole life, during her commoner days, and those as a count's daughter too. And who cared more about appearances than the royal family? That was why Philip was always nagging her to try to conceal her hair.
I think it's splendid. Beautiful, even.
What?
Like a spring meadow. It's a gorgeous color. Like I said, beautiful.
Agnes stared at Claude, speechless for a moment.
Not as beautiful as a mushroom, though.
Phew, okay. He really is just a mad fetishist after all.
Agnes sighed, struck by an odd sense of relief.
Besides, since you were engaged to Philip, that means you've already been vetted by the royal family. I don't think we'll run into any problems. Lady Agnes, the minute you showed that mushroom power of yours, it was all over for you. I really think you'd better give in and accept your fate.
Maurice smiled softly at her as he spoke. It certainly seemed like nothing she had to say was going to get through to this pervert mushroom prince. Agnes was going to have to use her smarts to do whatever she could to tip the balance in her favor. She couldn't let this mushroom-loving pervert have his way with her. Nor could she allow him to use his royal privileges to force her into marriage.
Ugh, how awful. A freak with influence. Let me think it over for a while.
Claude seemed mostly sane. Perhaps if she gave him a little time, he'd awaken to his own foolishness.
Please let that happen before it's too late.
Claude gazed into Agnes's pleading eyes for a moment, before slowly nodding.
All right. Yes, take some time and think it over. I want you and I to make beautiful mushroom babies together.
Ugh, on second thought, maybe no amount of time will be enough for crazy Prince Claude to get with the program.
Lady Agnes, my one true love, let us be good to one another and for one another, always.
Claude caught hold of Agnes's hand and pecked the back of it. Agnes jerked her hand back in surprise, just as Claude's glove suddenly sprouted half a dozen Gymnopilus junonius mushrooms. Claude gasped with delight and began plucking them immediately, his features bright with excitement.
He's so handsome and so deranged.
Agnes had never been more disgusted or terrified by her own mushroom powers than she was on this day.